Coming up on this episode.
How does that happen?
I don't know, but it's what we wanted to happen, so I'm not complaining.
Absolute outrage.
You're the only person that's complaining here, Tom, so it doesn't really matter, does it? Can you guess what Tom was outraged by? Carry on listening to find out. Hello everyone, my name is Luke. This is episode 17 of the DraftCast, and today we are joined by the current league leader, Tom Rowe. How are you doing, Tom?
Hello, yeah, great, thanks for having me on again.
Glad to have you back.
Looking forward to coming back on. Yeah, so lots happened since I was last on. Lots to discuss, I think.
Yes, definitely. And before we do that, I'd just like to please remind people to subscribe, like the video. It does help us try and grow the channel a bit. So yeah, we'll look at the league table as usual, and we'll do a bit of a different team review this week because game week 29 only has 4 games, so I don't really want to talk too much about that because everyone's in the same boat with struggling for players. So got a few different types of questions for you this week, Tom. Then I've brought a segment, and then we've got your segment as well. So we'll crack on. There's a lot to get through. Very
intrigued to find out. Yeah, wasn't expecting this.
Yeah, I want to try and mix it up every time. So yeah, hopefully people will like it. It's another stats-based thing, but yeah, we'll get to it. Don't worry. So the league table. This week we've had someone get the highest score. It was probably, it's fair to say, unexpected this week with Tolly. 64. It's done well.
It's a good score, isn't it? Everyone else is quite low scoring. So to actually get a standout highest scorer this week, he's obviously done quite well. He's hit quite a few players with quite large points, hasn't he? So it's not all come from one player, to be fair to him.
Yeah, no, he's done well.
Yeah, I'm quite impressed. I guess he's been having good form over the last few weeks as well, Tolly. So yeah, definitely probably one I've got my eye on, maybe.
Ooh, I think Lawrence deserves a bit of a shout out there with 50. That's a good score for that week.
50, yeah. I was kind of looking at his team as well. I don't know if he's been given the credit because he's been bringing in some pretty good free agency. He's been keeping an eye on those injured players who's coming back. I think he's recently snapped up Zaha just for the injury recovery, and also Jota as well. So some quite shrewd transactions going on from Bear. Even though he's been quiet, he's these last few weeks he's definitely been doing some very shrewd transactions. So be interested to see how his kind of form starts turning. Let's say 50 is pretty decent as well. So it starts looking like it's going in the right direction again.
Yeah, definitely. Let's hope he keeps it up. And then unfortunately, Rich at the bottom with the lowest score of 21. Not a good week this week for Rich.
How does one manager go from knocking out the most informed manager in the league at the moment to then the next game week getting 21 points? How does that happen?
I don't know, but it's what we wanted to happen, so I'm not complaining.
Absolute outrage.
You're the only person that's complaining here, Tom, so it doesn't really matter, does it?
As long as he wins the league, the league, as long as he wins the cup, that's what that matters. I don't mind getting knocked out by the winner. If I was Rich, though, looking at that 21 value there, I would be, putting all the stops to just make sure I won the cup. I think the league's a bit. I'd be having a look at those game weeks where the cup draws are for, and be doing all the transactions purely to load up on that and go all guns blazing for that cup. I'd love it if he got to that final. It'd be great.
Yeah, it would be good. To be fair, you're right. It would be good to see him get to the final and win. So yeah, you'll have to keep on listening, everyone, for when we do the draw, which will be on the next episode with Adam. So yeah, interesting.
Just looking at his team, and only one player got 6 points. The next highest was one player got 3, and everyone else was 2s and 1s and 0s. That is, if Chelsea hadn't kept a clean sheet, he could have been getting close to that lowest ever score. But they did.
Right. Isn't anybody else worth mentioning there, do you think? I mean, you were third highest with 48.
There's a lot around the mid to high 40s, weren't there? So I mean, I don't know whether Will wants to. I know he's already said he's very disappointed with his team and going through quite a serious part of reflection over the last game week as well. So it'll be interesting to see how that team comes out this following game week. It sounds like there could be a bit of a shake-up in the Northgate camp.
We'll
Looking
see.
forward to seeing what he actually does. He's not a manager of much action. He likes to let the players play, but it sounds like he might be stepping in. And I'm eagerly awaiting what comes from the free agency this week from Morris. I'm intrigued.
Yeah. I think it's going to be interesting, this free agency, because there's only 4 games this week. I've personally, when I've been looking, I've been struggling to sort of line up too many changes because I've got players playing that I might necessarily want to get rid of for the future, but I'm like, well, can I afford to do it for this week where they're going to play? So it's an interesting week to try and make some wholesale changes, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I'm obviously, as everyone knows, I'm a big double game week advocate. This one is a strange one. This one coming up with, like, say, only four games as it being played. There's not many options in the free agency anyway, so I'm struggling myself to know what is the best thing to do. Do you try and load up and actually get the points? I think we're definitely noticing this year the league being tighter in terms of the gap between the positions in the league, so every point could count coming towards the end. So I think it would be silly to completely write off the idea of making sure you didn't have some players on the pitch. Hopefully, no one's left. It's just one player on the pitch. That would be absolutely ridiculous. But hopefully, no one's that stupid. But we'll see.
Yeah, that would be an interesting decision. So yeah, I think we'll move on from the league, and like I mentioned at the start, we'll do a slightly different team review. Of course, I say team review. It's not really a team review. It's more of a questioning for you, Tom. So as you saw, but the listeners won't know, I requested questions from all the other managers to put forward to you this week. So I'll start with the first one. Do you want to know who they were from, Tom, or do you think I should ask them anonymously? And I'll let you try and guess who it was.
Will they be quite? What do you think they'll be quite obvious? I can have a go at guessing if you want.
Yeah, okay, we'll do that. So the first one says, seeing Pep say he's going to rotate 6 to 7 players a game, does Tom think it's time to diversify?
I think what I've been noticing over the last, 10 game weeks or so, I've been kind of running fairly good form. There's a lot of people concerned about my team and Pep. It's lovely to see so many people worried and offering advice of what I should do. It's nice to see that support coming from the other managers. But frankly, I think I'm quite happy with my strategy. I'm not is obviously someone who likes to change his team regularly. We all know that. But I think it really depends what players you've got. Yes, some of the players will get rotated, and as long as I've got the depth in the team, which I currently think I do, to make sure I've got players playing, getting on the pitch, then I'm not too worried, to be honest. I've obviously diversified from 5 players down to 4. Zinchenko, but after great service to the team, I have to let him go. And that was mainly for diversifying reasons, but I mean, he didn't play last week. He's not going to be playing this game due to the lack of matches. So I'm fairly comfortable. I think it's just been the amount of Man City players in the team has been a reason probably why I've been doing so well over the last few game weeks. Was obviously their form improvement has also been seen through my probably team's improvement due to just the sheer numbers of players I've got in the team. But
yeah,
I even if he rotates it, players are going to play every other week. So as long as I've got the depth in the squad, it helps. Obviously, having Edison as the keeper, who's probably going to be playing every game. And then I've tried to keep it to 1 midfielder, 1 defender, one striker. So, and as long as you've got 4 players on the bench and you've got 4 players on the pitch, if everyone else is playing, it's not necessarily the end of the world if they do get rotated. And when they do, and if they keep scoring like they have been and performing, they've had a bit of a lack of clean sheets actually over the last 4 weeks. I'm surprised. I think that surprised quite a few people because everyone thought my shoot up the league was down to having 3 City defenders keeping clean sheets, but actually they've had the last 4 games. I think have had no clean sheets. Not the last. What was it? The previous 4.
Yeah.
yet I'm still shot up the league as well. So I think there's more to it than just City's the only reason why I'm doing well. I think there's a lot more going on. Like I say, it's about the depth, I think.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Next question. Oh, do you want to? Do you think you know who asked that?
I feel like everybody's asked that one in the group chat recently.
Yeah.
It sounds like something Adam, Tolly, Will, Jim would say, all four of them.
So that is a Jim question. That one.
Yeah, I mean he's got other things to worry about, hasn't he? To be honest, he shouldn't be concerned about my stuff.
Yeah.
But anyway, come on, let's have another one.
Yep. Next one. How does it feel to have daylight between yourself and second place?
Well, I mean, I'm not really thought about it, to be honest. I'm just going at my speed and going at kind of my form and just keep rocketing up the league. And I guess there is starting to see a bit of daylight. I don't think we've seen this size of daylight for a while in the league, probably. So it is quite interesting to see if I can hold on. I am now trying to consolidate my position. I openly will put out there, I'm not looking to drop to second till the end now. This is it going in. Looking at all my decisions going forward is trying to defend that first place position I'm in and make sure I'm not going to drop. So that a lot of my decisions and transactions in the agency and stuff like that are very much understanding the other managers around me and how I can consolidate and keep this position.
Yeah, good tactic. Okay, next question. How did you regroup after a historic cup knockout by Bruno Fernandes?
I mean, I'm not going to lie, I'm disappointed. There was high confidence going in after that cup draw. There was very high confidence.
Yep, understandably.
But on the day, I can't complain. I think both teams got fairly respectable scores. I think I was definitely helped out by KDB turning up. But Rich getting, was it Dawson, defender, goal, got all the bonus points to run his way as well, and had the two Chelsea players play in the defence. So I can't moan. I think both got respectable scores. There's probably a bit of luck on both sides to get those points we actually got, to be honest. But Rich got more, so I just hope he does well and keeps the run going. To be honest, I don't want him to knock me out and then get knocked out next round and get another 21.
Yeah.
So just hope he can keep that cup run alive. Let's hope Chelsea's defence, I guess, do well. I think he's heavily invested, isn't he? He's heavily invested, I think, in the Chelsea team. So if they do well,
maybe you should support him. Do some trades with cup clauses. He gets them for the cup.
Well, you know, I've tried to give people out very respectful, and nobody wants Rudiger. Now he's like, everyone's trying to pick up Rudiger and Zinchenko. I bet it's going to get picked up. Like, giving up. Nobody wants my trades. They're just being. I think I can understand though. If I'm in first place, they don't want to trade me because they think probably it's going to improve my situation. So I can understand that. And they're more likely to pick them up from free agency, especially at towards the bottom of the league, aren't they?
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm obviously quite bitter, but
yeah,
on the day the better man won, so I'll give him that.
Okay, fair enough.
Done some really good avatars as well, so I'll let him off.
Yeah, that's true. So this next one, I think you'll like this one. What has been the key to your upturn in form as a manager during this, your third season as a manager?
I think I've drafted the best I've ever drafted this season. So the last three seasons, this is by far my best draft team I actually have pulled. So on the other two seasons, I've definitely been trying to play catch up and never really quite got there. Whereas this season, I think I drafted a lot better. The team weren't performing, which I drafted, and therefore I was very low in the league for the first half of the season. I think the team's starting to perform now, and that's obviously because a clear strategy at the beginning, and you can see from my draft, was Man City. I know a lot of people were trying to avoid the rotation, but if you look at the draft picks, the first three draft picks I had were Man City, all three, and I was on purposely trying to go for KDB, which is most of the time through the last few seasons, if he's fit, will play every game. He doesn't really get rotated. It might be a little bit different this season now because of well City have done. So that might change a little bit. But that was my reasoning for that. And then Edison obviously doesn't get doesn't get rotated. And then I knew Aguero, there was issues there. So Jesus being a striker as well made sense. So main reason for that, I think, to be honest with you, the main reason for that is Man City at the end of last season were absolutely tearing it up. I think Liverpool had dropped away, post the first lockdown. Liverpool completely dropped away, and City were absolutely tearing it up. So I thought, well, this seems to favour them, this kind of training ground stadium situation.
Yeah.
So let's load up on the City players. Starts the next season, and then suddenly that form's completely gone, and that strategy's not particularly working that well. But obviously, it's started to turn around the corner as soon as City started doing well. I guess I've started doing well. But if City carry on to do well, hopefully I'll do well. I guess I need to make sure that I'm not too vulnerable to. I don't think I'm vulnerable to the City rotation. I think I'm just vulnerable potentially to if they don't do well generally. But I think as long as I've got some other players in, I should be able to contain that. But I think that's mainly why I've done well. Better draft. So the other players, I've not got a bigger starting hurdle to get over, and the strategy I actually laid out originally is actually now finally over the last few years actually coming to fruition. Especially because I loaded up on City players, and I don't know if people always bring up about the double game weeks now, but they never brought up that there'd be the first 10 game weeks or so where lots of my players, City players, hardly played game weeks. So there wasn't much talk about those ones, but the ones not playing game weeks early on. But that's potentially why I was lower down in the league in the first half as well.
Yeah.
Got players not playing, so yeah. Hopefully that answers the question. I think.
Yeah, I think so.
Today we went off a bit of a tangent, but yeah.
Okay, next question. What would you change/add to the league next season to make it better for everyone?
I don't know. It's hard to, things seems to keep evolving naturally, don't they? Like, for example, with the podcast as well, and the cups, and all the events we do and stuff. I just think it just keeps getting better and better. I wouldn't want to. I couldn't say what I would want. I just like it to grow in the way it's growing.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to actually having the physical events. Hopefully we're having this one in the summer for the end of year. I think what we do with those could get a bit more interesting, maybe. So not necessarily the day-to-day running of the draft, but potentially the events. Maybe there's some stuff there that could take it to another level. So, yeah, I don't think I would necessarily say anything. I haven't got anything in my mind at the moment. It's quite hard on the spot to come up with a good proposal. But
yeah, that's fair enough.
I think the main thing I want, or everyone wants, is just everyone to get stuck in and get involved, don't we? So anyone who's got a good idea to jump in and kind of get running with it, almost like yourself has done with the podcast. So,
okay, last question. Next season, apart from yourself, who would you like to see win the league?
Next season. Wow.
Next season, yeah. I imagine whoever's put this forward believes you're going to win it this year. That's why they've said next season.
I mean, I'm always about the underdog, really. I think my rise up the league after being at the bottom for so long, and the past few seasons as well, is it's a true underdog story. It's beautiful, but it'd be good if someone could recreate that. I mean, I would have said you originally if they asked you at the beginning of the season to be an underdog, but this season you've been so high up for the whole season. I think that's can't really call you an underdog really anymore. New league joiner Max, if he won the league on his first season, that would be an absolute shocker probably to the world. Yeah. So I mean, I'd love to see that if that could happen.
That would be great, to be fair.
I'll have to send him over my fantasy football book, obviously, to help him for the first season. Or maybe Rich might have to send it after, because I think Rich has got it now. But I think I'd like Max to be up there just to shock. And the only other person, obviously, which we would like to see win, I think, is Adam, because he's had such a horrible time of it this season. Put so much into the community that is the draft. I just think the amount he would get out of it is on another level. So, I mean, that's the other person I'd quite like to see win it.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I can understand that one.
Definitely don't want James anywhere near it. Or Tolly. Or Jack. Bear's already won the cup, so you don't really want it. You got to share the silverware, haven't you, I think? And Rich is going to win this cup. So George would be a nice one as well. I wouldn't mind George winning it. Northgate's got too much silverware. He's run out of space, I heard, so we can't. He doesn't want it.
Yeah. We can't have him win the league for a third time, I don't think. That would be outrageous. Okay. I think you've some good answers there. I think I quite like that sort of listener suggested question. So Adam's our next guest. So if anybody's got any questions they'd like to ask him, to have me ask him on the podcast, leave them in the comments below. Right then, Tom, I have brought a little stats segment along.
Ooh, well, you've come to the right person then for this one. I'm always ready for a stat.
Right. Something that I've been thinking about, and no one's really mentioned before, is the role of team captains in the actual, Man City captain, Southampton captain, whoever, and their performance in the fantasy game, as it were.
Okay.
So what I've done is collate information about all the captains that have started games this season and put together a few little stats to go through. So the first one is how many captains there have there actually been this season? Because when I went through the stats, there's actually been quite a bit of rotation through some of the teams.
Yeah, I can imagine, yeah.
So there's been in total 56 captains, and Everton have topped this with having 5 different captains start their games over the season so far. And then as you can see at the bottom, there's only 3 teams that have had 1 captain for the whole season. So it's quite an interesting view.
Yeah, I wouldn't have put Everton. Would never have thought Everton would have been at the top there. I kind of thought Chelsea was going to be quite high up. We know that Southampton one, don't we, Luke? I think we know that one.
It's their top scorer as well this season. So
your main man.
Yep. But I think it's quite interesting. Like, there's a couple in there, like Villa. It would have just been 1 if Jack Grealish didn't get injured. So that's why theirs is 2 this season. So there's a few in there which, they do have a main captain, but injuries have sort of probably, meant that hasn't happened this season. But there's some that have only played like 1 game as captain, but I've included them in this because I just went, right, if you've started as captain, I'm putting you on the list. So for an example of that is for Spurs, it's been Hugo Lloris for the whole season, and then 1 game, Harry Kane was started as captain. So there's a few outliers like there.
Play that game, or they change it?
Can't remember. I feel like he did.
I don't remember Lloris being out. That was all.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll move on to the next one, which is how long do they typically play for? So what I wanted to do was do minutes played as captain, because that would really help sort of with the stats that I was trying to get across. But that I couldn't find that as a stat anywhere. So I've just gone with, the total minutes they've played this season. So to do this, I broke the captains down by their position and did the averages by their position, and then also an overall average. So you can see the majority of captains in the league are defenders, followed by midfielders, forwards, and goalkeepers. So on average, about 1,700 hours played. And so far this season, I think it's 2610 hours have been played in total. So, yeah, it's interesting, because what I was trying to get across was, like, when you're doing your draft, is it worth sort of picking out any of the captains of the teams? So you could argue, for Leicester, Schmeichel's their captain goalkeeper. He's played every game. So is he a worthwhile keeper to pick up from your draft? Because he's going to play every game as their main captain. So it gives you another parameter to look at when you're creating your initial draft, or even players that you're trying to trade with or pick up from waivers.
There's nothing too surprising, is there? Like, you got the goalkeepers very high on the average time, and then the forwards on the lowest. It's probably what you would expect. I'm surprised there's not any more forwards, but there's been a bit of a lack of forwards this year with injuries as well and stuff. So
Yeah.
I'm surprised that number's so low.
Yeah, and a lot of people, a lot of forwards moved to midfielders, didn't they, this year as well? So that's had an impact on that as well. But one of the main ones I wanted to get at is what kind of points do they score? You know, that's the main thing you need, isn't it? Is the points that they're going to score for you.
That's what we care about, isn't it?
Yeah. So again, same format, broken down by the position that they play, and then the averages for those positions, and then an overall average. So the keepers, I don't really know if it's worth, you know, because there's only the two of them, and both of them have played all their games and have scored pretty highly. That sort of, we put that to the side, I think, for this. But I think interestingly, the midfield captains are obviously scoring a lot higher than the defending captains.
So this is, you've counted out all the points the captains have scored and divided by this per. Trying to understand.
This is total over up to the season to date. What's the average? You know, all the points added up and averaged over the 20. So the 64 is the average for the 27 defending captains. 78 is the average for the midfielding captains.
Yeah. So all the points of the captains divided by the amount of amount of captains in each one.
Yeah. And then the 71 is the average of all the captains, or all the players that have started a game as the captain, and that's their average score this year. So what it doesn't take into account is if the captain gets subbed off and then the band gets given to someone else for the remainder of that game. I wasn't able to take that into account. So it's just starting captains, yeah.
I'm trying to think where 71, 72 points sits. Is that kind of mid-table of the points?
I'll give you some names of people around that number.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
So someone that's bang on 71 is Decore.
Very consistent. Yeah.
You've got Ailing on 70, Alioski on 72, Rice on 74. So it's actually not a great area of the table, to be fair, looking at the season so far. And because there's quite a range of players that have been a captain, and because as well, like we've shown, there's a lot of teams that have had multiple captains over the season, and some for injury reasons, and so some haven't played that much. So there's a lot of the teams, I'd say, at the bottom of the league have a lot of players that have played as captain, but then have barely played at all, and then their scores are really low, and that's what brings the average down. So, but then you've got players like Maguire, Ward-Prowse, who have played every game this year and are scoring over 100. So it's a big range. You have got players from like over 100 down to the 30. So I think what I took away from this was, if you are going to pick a captain, try and get one that you know is going to play the majority of games, because they are typically scoring well.
Who was the best scoring you found in the end?
Well, the best scoring captain is Kane, but purely because he's played one game. So I don't really know if it's worth counting
I see what you mean. Yeah.
him. But then the next, I would say the top two regular captains are Jack Grealish and James Ward-Prowse. The rest around that, I mean, you've got Kevin De Bruyne as just below them as well.
And they've had very good games, haven't they?
Yeah, so that's what I think you need to take away, is try and get those captains that are the regulars, play, if not all the games or the majority of games, and then the ones that are probably midfield as well, like your Jack Grealish, James Ward-Prowse, because either they're going to be the playmaker, like James Ward-Prowse takes all the set pieces, doesn't he? So they're more likely to do those sort of roles, I guess.
Yeah, like I said, the average there is definitely a step change in the midfield there, isn't there, compared to the defence and forward. So
yeah,
interesting one.
And but because, like as mentioned, this defenders is made up of the majority of captains, and there's been a lot of defenders from the lower teams on the league. So typically those ones that have not had as many clean sheets. I think there are some good captain defenders to pick there.
I guess a captain is a captain generally, if it's a good way of probably knowing one who is going to play regularly as well, isn't it? If they are at the beginning of the season being picked as captain.
Yeah.
Good indication of how often they're playing.
And that's it. That was my segment. I just had this idea. It's like,
getting involved with the stats, eh?
Yeah.
It's good to see.
It took me a while to put together, I'm not going to lie, because the captain isn't like a registered stat on the league website.
Appreciation for what the head of statistics, Adam Waters, does. Probably.
Yeah. He can have those. He can have those stats if he wants them to use elsewhere. But yeah, it was something that popped into my head. I was like, I wonder if captains in general are more valuable players to have. And I think for some teams they can be, but then for other teams, where they're rotating their captain a lot, it's not worth it. So, but it's interesting. It's an interesting thing to think about. I think when you're making, especially when you're doing your draft, when you're picking out those players for the start of the season, early doors, you want to know they're going to play, don't you? So,
yeah, I've not really thought about it before, and it's sometimes a little bit hard to draw probably direct comparisons and conclusions from it, but it's definitely an intriguing. Like I say, there's so many different things that probably could impact that, isn't there? Like I say, the amount of times they've played and injuries and stuff like that. But it's an interesting thought. I've never really looked at it, and there's probably something there that would probably help me in the future to think twice, or particularly during the drafting phase, I would say as well. But
yeah. Okay. Well, we'll move on to your segment then.
Right. So since the last was on, there's a lot changed, hasn't there? For those who don't remember, last time I did a bit of a recap of individual managers' form throughout the season to date, and I thought it was very interesting and probably worth seeing where those predictions went originally, which caused a bit of controversy early on, and also show what's happened since then as well. As I think there's been another 10 game weeks, and quite surprising, there's been quite a big shake-up in the league as well since the last review of this. So I thought we could cover that. But first, before we do that, a bit like yourself, Luke, I had a bit of an interesting thought of that'd be a bit of a stat which people might find interesting or might help them maybe over the next few game weeks leading into the run-up to the closing games. Question was, how much does your starting 11 selection cost you?
Okay.
So there's a lot about managers overperforming or underperforming in this season, and what I want to really get in detail is, are managers choosing the right starting 11? How many people are losing points to putting the wrong people on the pitch, the wrong people on the bench, the wrong order they've selected? And I wanted to look at is how much is it costing you over the season so far? So just to give you an example of what I did, this is my team this week. I actually lost 7 points this week by having Edison in goal instead of Meslier, and also to surprise a few, I could have gained another 2 points by getting Joe Linton on the pitch as well for Sanchez. So just to give you an example, really, what I've done. When I've gone through this, I've made sure it's a proper team, that it's one that the fantasy football would accept, and it's after it's been corrected. So if your player comes on because another player doesn't play, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about after everything, is there still points left on the bench?
Yeah.
Makes sense? So I don't know, have you ever thought about this? Have you ever thought, have I been dropping quite a lot of points on the bench? Is it something that's crossed your mind?
Not too much. I try to ignore what's on the bench. I mean, this year I've not really had much. I've had quite a few players sitting on the bench that I know aren't going to do anything anyway. So a lot of the times my bench has been, pretty much zeros across the board. Or
you wouldn't be even losing points if they're not playing.
Yeah, so it's probably between my keepers, but yeah.
I mean, for me, and I think everyone's aware, the amount of points I've probably lost due to the Leeds keeper versus the City keeper, which maybe you wouldn't have thought at the end of the season, but yeah. All right, let's have a look then. So points dropped due to starting 11 selection. Who do you think, you have a guess, who do you think has dropped the least points? Who's the manager out there that is got the most in tune with his football knowledge and selection, that he knows who's going to be playing, who doesn't play, who's going to get the most points out of each? Who do you think's dropped the least?
Well, my gut would say Adam.
Interesting.
But I guess his performance this year may not back that up. But then again, I don't know. I can't think of anyone else that I would think off the top of my head, like, who knows exactly who's likely to play each week, all the teams inside out. And Adam would come to my mind first.
I think probably a lot of people would agree with you, but this is probably a bit of a surprising one. Not many people would expect this, but it's probably a great stat for this manager who I think is struggling to find stats that show good performance.
Okay.
And actually, it is Richard. Richard has dropped the least points out of all managers. So he's dropped 39 points so far.
That's
actually 39 points left on the bench.
Over 28 game weeks? I'd say that's pretty impressive.
1.4 points per game week is what that's put there in that third column. And then I've done the last column, the fourth column is average points dropped compared to points gained. It's easy to say someone's dropping a lot of points, but if they're also gaining a lot, it gives you an idea of, I guess, how well their team's actually performing as well, if that makes sense. So 1.4 points per game week, I think you can forgive someone that, can't you? That is very impressive. That is good. So I think you'll like that one.
Yeah.
We'll work our way up the league then. So the next best performing manager, Jack. There's quite a big difference though, 20 points. We're talking about a league which is pretty close in terms of just league positions could easily change within 10 points for a lot of the areas of the league. So different selection, could have gained nearly 60 points there.
Yeah.
Which it's quite substantial, but it's jumping up there now to the 2.1 points per game week. Quite a bigger increase in the average points dropped per points gained per game week to the 5.5%. So it really shows how well Richard is doing, really, compared if that's the second best performing. Then we've got Tolly, bit of a surprise one. Wasn't expecting that one to be so low, to be honest, personally. But 64 points, so not that dissimilar to Jack. 2.3%, 2.3 points per week, 6.1%. We've got 66, very similar to his brother again. He's starting to see quite a bit, maybe a little bit more consistency of the average manager of how many they're dropping. It amazed me just how much there was, to be honest. Considering there's a lot of people out there who've got players who aren't playing or injured and being rotated and stuff like that, to still be able to drop 66 points. There's a lot of points being scored by these players in the league. We talk about there not being many options on the free agency list, but there's a lot of points being scored still, which aren't being put into our final score tally. And then we've got Lawrence, 73. So it's jumped up down to the 70s. 2.6 points dropped per game week, but still, I think anyone. I think the bottom five is fairly respectable.
Oh, yeah.
Do you want to have a guess who's next?
I'm worried now because I was expecting myself to come up, but I'm now worried that I'm not going to come up next either.
Right, let's have a look. So here we go. We've got Adam. So Adam, I think you were expected to be the bottom, but he's actually. We're getting close to 30, 40 points above the bottom space. That's quite a big difference in putting points. Again, it really highlights when you look at all those managers, 60s to 70s, how different Richard is.
Yeah.
So, it's impressive stuff. You do start to see Adam's actually got a slightly better in terms of percentage points dropped to points gained than Lawrence and then Tolly. So Adam, probably if you were to order this maybe on percentage points dropped compared to points gained, Adam probably would be a bit lower, to be fair to him. But I've done it on total points dropped.
Yeah. We've
got yourself, not that far away from the major part of the pack, I don't think. I wouldn't be too disheartened with that. Equates to 2.8 points per week. Do you think that 79 points would change things much? Do you think that made you think about maybe what you've doing? Maybe next time you set your bench up, were you maybe thinking twice or?
Maybe. I'll have to have a think. I'm surprised it's actually quite that high. But yeah.
I think it's with yours. It's more linked to keepers, do you? Or
yeah, because I've had Leno and Schmeichel for a while. So obviously, because Schmeichel plays every game, if Leno outscores him, they don't swap. So
yeah,
that's probably the majority of it. Because I've had like Abraham on my bench, scoring me 0 for the last however many weeks. So I think most of my the main bench does get rotated in when people don't play. But there must have been a few weeks where I got it wrong. So
yeah, and you can see that percentage has jumped up quite a lot there to 7.4%. And then we're into the final three. So third worst manager in terms of selecting their starting 11. Surprisingly, is the reigning champion, two-time winner, Mr. William Morris, with 86, a bit of a jump from yourself. So we're getting into the over 3 points per game week drop due to selection, which I don't know. After winning so many titles, I was surprised to see. I would have thought him to be maybe a bit lower in that list, all his experience. So yeah, it's interesting. It wasn't the order I think I was expecting.
Yeah, I'm not sure you can call him out on this, Tom, when your name hasn't come up yet.
We'll wait for that, shall we? So anyway, the next one, myself, 98 points dropped. I mean, that's a big jump from
that is
the
a big
third
jump,
place.
yeah.
We're looking at an extra 12 points. So, I mean, I'm really thinking about this. Like, I think going over the next, I've got 10 more game weeks, and I've dropped nearly 100 points in, what is it, 28 game weeks? So could be dropping another 30 points. So that could be all the difference to win the league with the current situation where I'm in.
Yeah.
So 8.1% of points dropped compared to points gained. So yeah, there's definitely room for improvement for myself. So I don't know whether other managers should be worried, but if I can tackle I mean, I've improved the draft part of my game. I've improved throughout the season, the free agency part of the game. If I can get this down, no stopping me, I imagine.
I suppose that is worrying, the fact that you're top of the league, yet you're almost the top of this table of points dropped as well. So it just shows how you are doing well, to be fair.
I didn't want to say it like that, but it's a good point. I'm glad you said it, Luke. And then, I mean, I think we'd all agree, like Adam's football knowledge, I think is unquestionable. But I think out there we also know George is quite a, our course with the football knowledge, particularly on his trivia Friday afternoons. He does. To see him at the top with 102, he smashed the 100 barrier. I wasn't expecting that. Not that much more than myself, to be honest. So I can't give him too much stick. But
Yeah.
still, that's 102 points dropped. 3.6 points per game week. 9.5% points dropped compared to points gained on average per game week. So I think, probably the top three are significantly off the pace. The rest of the pack is kind of similar, probably within, give or take a bit, very, very similar. And then Richard, just by far from all this, is the shining star on performance. I would say it was interesting. I wasn't expecting the order I got, or even the size of the numbers, to be honest. I think myself, out of the 98, I think I dropped 20 of those in that double game week where I actually put those players on the pitch and then decided to take them off. If you remember that one. But so I actually chose them to go on to start and then changed my last minute and cost me 20 points. So yeah, I've made that mistake again, so don't worry.
Yeah.
You got to go with the gut now, I've learned. Don't second guess. It's been doing me well so far over the last few seasons since then. That was the last time I was on the pod, was that game week, wasn't it? That was when I broke the 100.
It was, yeah. You're right, yeah.
Leaving 20 still on the bench. Yeah, it's crazy week. But yeah, so there we go. That's I thought it'd be a bit of an interesting one to see and a bit of food for thought on people whilst they're selecting their team each week. That there's still a lot of points being left on the table, and then people can make the most of, and it could make all the difference to where they finish in the league this season.
Yeah,
without further ado, just there as well, you got the average 2.6 average, 6.5%. So you're not very far off the average, to be honest. Like I say, it's the top three which are particularly underperforming, and Rich overachieving. Well, not overachieving, just doing very well. Without further ado, though, and backed by popular demand, or what I like to think maybe popular demand, is league position versus game week chart. So hopefully you can remember this from last time I was on the pod.
Yeah.
We had recapped up to game week 19. we had a look at how the different managers had been doing in terms of their form, and I wanted to have a look at what's happened since, as it's been quite interesting. There's a lot happened considering we did 19 originally, and then we've done now only 10 more. It seems to be a lot gone on in the last 10 game weeks. So let's reveal this, shall we? You can see there's been quite a bit of movement from the chart there. Obviously, it's always a bit of a hard one to read like this, so I'll try and highlight and go through it. But we've got game weeks across the horizontal axis, and we've got league position first being at the top there, and 10th being at the bottom. So, should we have a little jump in? Have a little review of some of the managers.
Yeah.
Let's start with Lawrence, aka Bear, with what I like to call the rebuild after the collapse. So, when I was last on the pod, game week 19, Bear was top position. He'd been top for 3 weeks. He was even top for another 2 weeks, 2 game weeks after that. But then we all saw it, obviously. There's a massive drop off, nearly hitting rock bottom, which is unbelievable, really, considering how high up he was at one point.
Yeah.
With the gap he had. And now, over the last couple of game weeks, you can see there, it's starting to turn around a little bit. And I like that. I think, like I say, he's been making very shrewd free agency transfers recently, and he's starting to pay dividends. So I'm looking forward to that rebuild of his team. Hopefully, maybe a few injuries even may come back to start playing with a few games left, and really interesting to see where he actually finishes. Looks like there's actual signs now of a positive turnaround, which is nice to see. We don't want to see everyone dropping like that. That's quite unbelievable, really. So, any thoughts on that one? Or he was one of your main rivals for a while, wasn't he?
Yeah. I'm sure he won't like to see that 25 to 26 drop, but he'd be happy to see it going back up again, I'm sure.
Yeah. Let's jump on to the next one. So yourself, I mean, not much changed, Luke, has it? I've kind of summed it up as still Mr. Consistent. I mean, yes, you're in third when we last reviewed. You were in second, but you did have a stint at first. You're pretty much all around there, though, aren't you? You're not, you're staying at that constant rate and probably ready to pounce if any of the other managers make a mistake. So
I'm happy with where I am, and considering your original forecast had me going lower, I'm happy to have maintained position in the top 3, considering the other 2 guys who are in the top 3 are now not. No, have been lower down the table.
Like I say, I feel like you're kind of there lying in wait. If anyone makes a mistake, you're ready to then pounce into that position. So it's all credit, really. Still Mr. Consistent is probably a positive thing, I wouldn't say. It's not negative, definitely. Let's jump over to Jack. I mean, last time we reviewed it, we said he made it to the top. He's had a bit of it's just not looking good, is it? I've tried something there as heading in the wrong direction. He had a bit of an up kick maybe for game week 25, but it looks like it's going in the wrong direction. There's not much sign of a turnaround, so it's not looking great. I think he's blamed a few injuries. He's blamed a few selection issues with Sterling recently, but I think he needs to start taking some serious action rather than just blaming these things around him. He's got to take this into his own hands. Otherwise, we'll keep seeing this going down and down and down, and soon, he's going to be near rich, which is So I think this one it needs some action. Otherwise, it could end up in a disaster.
Yeah,
from second place last year.
I'm sure he agrees with you. Yeah.
All right, let's have a look at Richard. I mean, all I've summed up here, I don't know if you remember, he was Mr. Average when we looked at game week 19. It was only like the following game week. I've now summed it as the plummet. You see there, he drops from 5th place within 2 game weeks to rock bottom.
Yeah.
He's struggling now. He's struggling, and I think this last game week is particularly not great for the gap at the bottom to the 9th place. So that is a sharp drop. I'm not quite sure what happened there. He had a very average kind of score, but it was respectable. I think I'd be intrigued for maybe look at the history of what went on there, because I think it might have been a point where he started gambling too much. and started pushing his look on what players to choose in free agency, because I think he ended up having in almost 3 or 4 players who none of them even played, because sometimes you've got to do that. You've got to roll the dice and you've got to gamble on a player. Maybe new during the January transfer window, they just brought someone in. You think, oh, maybe he's going to play. When you're not at the high up selection of the free agency options, you've got to gamble sometimes on those players, and I think he maybe taken too many. And I think there was particular games weeks where he's almost had 3 or 4 of those types of players who just did not play at all. And probably traded some okay players for them as well into the agency. So I'd be intrigued to look at maybe what exactly happened there, game week 20 and 21 in particular. That was expected, I think. And so well, after trading away in game week 3, Bruno Fernandes, then keep that consistent performance. But I think there's definitely something on the strategy that's gone wrong there. But look, we'll let him reflect and get back to me on that one maybe. Have a look at Adam. So I think last time we started to see this kind of the demise of Adam, and it's been a bit sad since, really. He's still struggling to turn things around. Not much changing since game week 19 in terms of going in the right direction, staying very low still. But I'm hoping, with the pick of the agency players, and obviously Bale's been a big pickup for him. He's got a lot of points from him. Some of the other players as well. He's picking up. I know he brought in Cash last week as well. So he's hopeful. I'm hopeful going into the last 10 game weeks that with some good pickups, he could start rising up again, because it definitely helps getting those players in. But not a lot happened yet. So let's keep the fingers crossed maybe for him. Definitely one of the managers you want to see a bit higher up, isn't it? I think. Right. Let's have a look at George. Well, I think George is a fairly positive story, because I think the last time we reviewed this game week 19, we said he's really struggling to get past 8th place. He couldn't break through, but what has happened? He's broken through. He's even got to the highest at one point of 5th. So there's definitely a good kind of positive trajectory for George, and there's been a little dip over the last couple of game weeks, but that's probably maybe some other managers overperforming rather than I think George underperforming. So I think there's quite a nice positive trend there, but what I've put there is it too little, too late? I think the speed is going up and the amount of game weeks, and I'm just not sure he's going to be able to get right up into the contenders section, those medal positions. One to watch, because it's definitely going in the right direction, and I think we've all seen it from the points recently. The team's definitely bringing the goods in a bit more compared to the early half of the season.
Yeah.
And we've got Tolly, and what I like to say, the roller coaster that is Tolly. I mean, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. He can't make his flipping mind up. The yo-yoing everywhere. But all credit to him. The last 3 game weeks, he's been seeing some good scores, bringing the points back, and actually now is in a 4th place position. As he's been since game week 3. So it's looking positive for Tolly. Even though it hurts me to say it is looking positive for him, and I think it's one I definitely need to keep an eye on. I think he mentioned when he came on the pod, but he's definitely drawn inspiration from other top class managers amongst the league. He's starting to understand double game week importance. He's starting to understand that he needs to have that fluid players in defence and midfield that is not constrained. He can change the players when he needs to. These are all great tricks that some of the top managers have been using this season. So I'm glad he's starting to recognise that, use that in his own arsenal, and he's actually seeing the benefits from it. So it's, I think, one of the highest forms of battery, isn't it, in terms of when you see someone doing your style. So it'll be interesting to see where he finishes. I'm definitely looking at and slightly concerned. There's some good performance, good projections for Tolly, I think.
Yep.
If I then go on to James, I mean, what I've tried to describe here is this is the perfect game plan execution. That's a game plan. And he executes it perfectly. He gets to that top place. He wants to then sell all his good players, get to bottom, and you can see it's absolutely going swimmingly. Like, it's really, really going well. You can't fault the execution of this. So hat off to James. Really, it's great managerial performance.
Yeah, I mean, your graph does not lie.
This thing is crazy, isn't it? Right, and then got Will out of nowhere. He wasn't really doing that much. He had a bit of a good kind of direction going. I said last time I was on, he said one to watch maybe, but there's a lot to go. But then out of nowhere, the sharp incline of up the league is unbelievable. I'm not quite sure what happened because I think the questionable trades were more around probably game week 15 or so like that. So it wasn't directly linked to those either. So maybe just obviously an uptake in form on some of the players, all of them hitting the points at once. But I wasn't expecting such a sharp rise from Morris. But luckily, we can see that top point was that top position was short-lived, which is good to see, and it looks like he's now on his way back down. So not too worried there, not too worried. But yeah, out of nowhere. Let's jump on, and then to the last one. Whew. I mean, he said and he delivered, didn't he? Came on this pod. He said, "I'm going to the top of the league," and then lo and behold, top of the league. Not just once. He's held it off for 3 game weeks now. I mean, I'm obviously going. I think the longest game week we've had at the top is 5th place. I think yourself 5 game weeks in a row consecutively, and Jack's done that. Yourself's done that. So I'm not quite up there yet. We're defending it to the same level as you, but I'm looking now to keep that position, consolidate it for the next 10 game weeks. Not looking to drop places.
Jack and Lawrence have held it for 5 weeks straight.
Is it Lawrence?
3.
Yeah, sorry, I looked. Yeah, it was 3. Well, but you've actually had it for 5.
I've been at 5, yeah, but not 5 in a row.
Yeah, not consecutive. Yeah. So not many managers have actually kept it for that long. Then really, like, we'll see if I can keep it over 5. I think that's a good sign.
Yeah. You were late though. I think we have to point that out. You were late getting there.
Let's we can have a little look at that. I've prepared some numbers on this.
Okay.
So last time I was on, the original prediction, I'm sure we all remember, dropping down quite a bit there. Myself going up to first. I actually was predicting Adam to get quite high. Yourself down to 4th, and that was only a 4 game week projection, so only to game week 23. So I can actually reveal to you what actually happened. I mean, if the graph wasn't hard enough to read anyway, I think I've now made it impossible. People who want the numbers, they are there if you want to try and decipher your individual ones. I thought I'd try and highlight a few interesting ones just to quickly talk about, but not all of them. I think the main thing I'd say here is I'm not one to moan about my stats and my projections, but I've got to say the plummet from Rich absolutely my stats. Stats are based on the lowest manager's position. So if one manager really underperforms and goes really low by himself, which happened to Rich, you can see it's actually a big, like nearly 20-30 point gap from Rich to the next one, then it makes all the other managers better, if that makes sense, because they're getting further away from you. So I think there's a little bit skewed, the numbers here, because especially the 22 to 23 game week area, you see a lot of upticks in all the other managers, but that isn't because they're doing well. That's because Rich has done particularly bad, but you don't see it on here because the lowest player is just at the bottom.
Yeah.
Just so people are aware. But I'll still show you what he looked like. I was half contemplating: do I change my stats? Do I make Rich go into minus numbers rather than? But I thought no, I'll just show it as projected. Someone who's been very vocal about the predictions is Tolly. So I thought we'd just have a look at this. Actually, so you can see that I had him. He was in game week 19 at the bottom, and I had him staying at the bottom for the rest of the next 4 game weeks. He a bit, but he was kind of at the bottom still. He was all talk, but really staying low. And then I think, to be honest, he's been absolutely saved by Rich. He's only actually 5 points above Adam, and so Rich hadn't done as terribly as he did. He would have only been 5 points probably above bottom. So yes, it's not exactly where the projection was, but I don't think it was much better than what the projection was, to be honest. Let's have a look at another one. This is myself. So you see the dotted line is the projection. I've actually overachieved. I think I've got about 10 points more than what I said I was going to have at this point, which is quite good. that far. There's obviously quite a lot of room for error in these projections, so I don't think that actually is too bad, to be honest. You've got Rich, which pretty good follow up the line, I think, to be honest. It's pretty much bang on what happened. So don't think anyone should be too surprised from that. Which is interesting because if you look at his other chart, he was still staying flat when I was on the pod last. So the kind of inclines were showing something was happening, but the movement on the table hadn't occurred yet, if that makes sense. Then we've got Bear, which followed pretty similar trend as well. I mean, there's a bit of a tick at the end there off the track, but again, I think that's skewed a little bit by Richard's performance. Kind of following the trend of what we predicted for Bear, pretty much smack on. And then you've got a few which broke the trend, which is what we want to see. You know, people listening to the podcast, seeing something's going on with the team and making changes and trying to do something about it. So we've had Jack predicted to get quite low by game week 23, but he's actually flattened out. But unfortunately, there's no sign of real increase on that projection. So yeah, he's done well to change it around, but it's kind of stopped the ship sinking, but it's only just staying afloat. That's what I'd like the way I'll describe that, I think.
Okay.
And finally, I think we've got yourself, which I think you'd be quite happy with that, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
You say you were expecting, I think, by game week 23 to go quite low, but you actually ended up going and taking the lead. So completely throwing a spanner in my projections there. I like to think that the pod obviously inspired you to make some changes and rethink some of your strategies. But
either that or Gundergoal just went mad.
But that is the main strategy. I thought you've got to play that one.
I already had it by then, I think. Oh, I can't really remember.
Yeah. That's kind of where we sat against how it turned out versus the projections. I'm sure some managers are keen to know what's actually happened since we last reviewed this.
Yeah.
So since we last reviewed this, I can reveal. I think we all saw at the time, the league was really coming tight together. So we reviewed this in game week 19, but game week 22, the league was the tightest really it's ever been. In terms of the top to bottom was within 70 points. Really, anybody's league. Absolutely anyone could have been in the running for that. But it's really interesting. But then you can see, obviously, as we go past game week 22, it starts spreading out again, and now we're getting to a position where it's almost back and greater in terms of the spread to what we were at game week 14 when Jack was at the top. So again, we can see some gaps starting to form again now. So there seems to be getting this quite large gap between the bottom, kind of Rich and Adam, and then the next position up. And unfortunately, I don't think Morris would like to see it, but he needs to come to terms with it. There's a bit of a gap opening up at the top. So it'd be interesting to see if these gaps can get closed or if they're just going to get bigger. But there's definitely some trends to show the league separating up again now, going into the last 10 game weeks. I think the thing to draw your attention to probably is this game week 21 turnaround where you see a lot of the managers before this are declining on here. They're very steep declines on the gradients. But as soon as we get to game week 21, that's where almost there's a shift. People start lifting back up again. And people start kind of finding where their new team's form is after so many game weeks of a decline. That we start to see a lot of managers then going back up again. Again, maybe a little bit related to the lower managers as well, dropping off the pace maybe a little bit. But it's definitely a bit about game week 21, 22, where we start to see this change in kind of almost the trends of everyone's performances. Some serious sharp upward climbs there from myself and Northgate.
Yeah.
Don't think anybody was quite expecting such a sharp and quick rise to the top. I don't think we've seen any up to date on the chart. If you look at the whole history, I don't think anyone's kind of risen up at any point that fast on so many game weeks in a row. Kind of in tandem as well, weren't we? Very much kind of neck and neck, just going up together. Obviously, Norway ran out of steam a little bit. That train kind of came to a bit of a halt and he's tailed off a little bit. But Team Rowe has kept that form going and that pace going and really took the battle to him. So I'm quite pleased right now. I think it's all coming together, the plan. I've just got to keep making sure, steady the ship and make sure we keep delivering each week. But at the moment, I can't complain. The team's been performing very well.
You definitely.
I know what you're at. know what you wanted. You wanting to know what's going to happen, aren't you, in the next 10 game weeks? I know you want
I
to
was
look
going
at
to
projections.
ask,
So
how far have you predicted?
as we only got 10 game weeks left, I thought, you know what? Let's just try and predict. Let's just go with the last 10 game weeks. Let's see what we think where it's going to end.
Okay.
To do this, I've used just the last 3 game weeks to get your form, because I think the last 3 game weeks probably are a better show of exactly what's going on recently. Whereas if I took more, you probably would be skewing the data a little bit. So if I take the next 3 game weeks and kind of get an average of what's going on with your incline or decline, this is what we get. So it's quite interesting. Not a lot going on mid-table, but we can see there Morris completely dropping off, actually completely falling out of the middle positions. But yourself staying up there, but we actually get that late surge. And like I say, I'm quite slightly concerned by Tolly. Tolly there is getting very close, within 5 points on the final day. So if he can keep this form up, there is a worry that Tolly might pit me at the top. And yourself still up there, though. You know, you're within 10 points. There's, to be honest, anybody's out the 3 there. It gets very close. So it could be quite an exciting end to the season if we get within 10 points on the last game week between the top 3 managers. So I thought it was quite interesting, maybe a bit nerve-wracking for myself. Not what I wanted to see, but it looks good for the final run into the end of the season. An exciting finish, hopefully.
We shall see. It's interesting. Yeah.
Would you be happy with that finish, or do you want to? What are you looking for this season?
I think I would be happy with 3rd. I think I can't remember where I came last season. I think it was mid to lower table. So yeah, to get 3rd would be great. Yeah. So I'm not going to complain with that. If you offered me 3rd now, I would take it. So yeah, it would be interesting to see how it goes. I wonder if you'd have taken maybe 5 weeks of form, because that's what Adam's been using, isn't it, for his form tables? Although we haven't had one for a while, so it'd be interesting to see.
Yeah, the issue if you take that, I think I've been so dominant, you'd almost nobody would catch me. So whereas you see, there's been a bit more of a dip recently in my performance.
Yeah.
So the last 3 makes probably more reasonable approach of what's actually going on recently, and maybe give a more accurate. Just because it's been so dominant from myself and Morris in the last 5 to 6 game weeks. The last 3 or 4 from myself and Willow, we've dropped off the pace a little bit, and like people like Tolly have kind of picked that up. So that was the logic behind it. But it looks, I'm just hoping, that's what everyone wants, isn't it? We want to get to the end of the season. It'd be a 3-horse race would be great. Anybody's to win, get exciting, and always matters more, doesn't it? I guess when there's so much riding on it towards the end. So I think that wraps up my segment. We went on for quite a while. Sorry about that.
That's fine. It's brilliant. Yeah, really, it is exciting. Like I say, if we get a 3-horse race at the end, that'll be almost as good as a cup final being won by 1 point.
Exactly. And
the
league never disappoints us, does it? So it's probably going to happen now. We've said it.
Oh, well, we can hope. Yeah, brilliant. Thanks for doing that. And hopefully when you come back on, what will be game week 37, you're back on. We can get a week before analysis of this again. And we'll have a better idea of where we're going into the last game week. That'd be interesting.
Yeah, hopefully it's a little bit easier to predict with only 1 week, so it could be quite accurate. Yeah. Looking forward to seeing how it pans out. I do like having a bit of a guess to see trying to project it and see how it goes, and hopefully some of the managers enjoy that as well. Yeah,
no, definitely.
Hoping I'm not going to get ripped to shreds by Tyler this time, because he actually looks like he's doing well, so he's probably likes it and he's going to be. It's amazing because he just swings that easily sometimes. So yeah, let's see. Let's see what the feedback gets. Hopefully it's not as controversial as the first one.
No, I think that was really good. And I think it brings a bit more excitement, I think, to these final 10 weeks. Make sure, get people excited again for the end. So yeah, no, I'm looking forward to it. But yeah, thanks for doing that. We will wrap it up now, and yeah, all we can really say is thanks for listening, everybody. Again, make sure to subscribe, like the video, turn the bell on for notifications when the next episode goes out. Yeah, thanks for coming on again, Tom. We'll see you again in game week 37. Good luck for the rest of the season. Sorry.
Thanks for having me on. Obviously, as always, enjoyed it. Always love talking stats. So looking forward to coming on next time as well.
Great. And that's it. This is the DraftCast. Thanks for listening. And remember, draft is life. See you next time.